Right, we are. It's 9:30. You're watching OTB AM, and I'm delighted to say that the Mayo legend joins AFLW footballer Cora Staunton joins us on the line. Morning to you, or good evening to you, Cora.
Good evening, boys. How are you? Good.
8:30. Is that about right in the evening?
Yeah, just 8:30. Yeah, just back in the door from training about 20 minutes. So yeah, a nice warm evening, 27, 28 degrees in Sydney. So yeah, tough training session.
Oh, listen, you need to be rubbing our noses in it. And I've just had a very quick Google of Sydney coronavirus, and things seem to be going okay.
Yeah, Sydney's actually good. I don't think they've had a case in over. I think they're up in about 3 weeks now. There's been a couple of cases in Victoria, but yeah, I think 1 or 2 cases here. They close a lot of the borders, but yeah, there's very little coronavirus here. I think in the whole of the country today, I think there was 3 cases. So nothing compared to at home. So yeah, lucky enough, life is pretty normal over here.
And does that mean you can go about your day and your training and your interactions pretty much as normal, or are there still things to watch out for?
Nah, bar just a couple of things we have to fill in every day about COVID. Everything else is pretty normal. Yeah, coffee shops, restaurants, pubs. Yeah, everything is normal. You only wear a mask if you're in a medical centre. Everywhere else, it's like there's no COVID at all, really, bar 1 or 2 things.
That's amazing. So you don't have to get tested or anything like that for training or for games?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we get tested twice weekly within the club. But do you know what? It's become routine now. I'd say at this stage I'm well over 25 plus tests. So yeah, routinely we get probably tested twice weekly. Normally it starts the week, but normally Monday and Friday is what we get tested.
Right. Well, between the weather now and the state of play in society generally, we're green with envy here. What's training like at the minute at the Giants? It's not been maybe the most ideal start to the season. 1 from 3.
Yeah, 1 from 3. Obviously, it's probably well documented. We've had probably a rough journey within pre-seasons this year. Personally, from obviously myself from Brid, and the Irish girls getting over late, and then obviously quarantining and getting out on Christmas Day. And from there, it's been a whirlwind really with the Giants. I didn't get to Sydney till 2 weeks ago. So I was just over 8 weeks on the road between hubbing with the Giants and hotel quarantining and stuff. So yeah, I think we're a lot more settled since we got back into Sydney. And yeah, so the win at the weekend was good. And yeah, we've West Coast Eagles on Sunday. So yeah, we'll be looking for another win.
And like looking at just doing a bit of digging around and looking at some of the highlights and some of the reports last night, and like scores have been hard to come by, and I wondered how much of that then falls back on your door, or like in terms of your own role in that and the team's role in trying to eke out more scores. Like, are they active conversations that you're having on a day like today, or how does all that play out for you personally?
Yeah. Of course, it falls on our forward line, and probably a bit falls on our ball movement with our midfield as well. So. Yeah, we wouldn't be too worried about last weekend because we played in torrential rain. So that's probably not the biggest worry. You're never going to kick a lot of scores in rain. Yeah, the 2 weekends previous, we've come up against probably the best team in the competition the week before in Adelaide. So yeah, there's certainly conversations. We want to kick more goals, and that's where the enjoyment is in the game. So yeah, we'll be looking to do that at the weekend. All but I think we're promised thunderstorms tomorrow night. So and a little bit of rain on Sunday. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, certainly, the biggest thing is obviously to win games, and the more goals you kick, the more chance that you have to win the games.
Yeah, and is that a case of you then, in terms of the midfield? Listen, get it into me, don't delay, pump it in. How are those conversations going?
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit different to Gaelic football. Obviously, 7 or 8 goals in a game is a big total. So if you're kicking 5, 6 plus, you're probably going to win a game. Yeah, so it's a little bit of that. Your role isn't just solely, scoring like it would be in Gaelic football. If you kick 2 goals in a game, it's quite good. You have a lot of other roles within the forward line, whether it's, tackle pressure, leading, just different stuff, blocks, a lot of stuff like that. So, just solely, it doesn't fall on maybe one individual, it falls on the whole forward line. And yeah, and probably from our wingers and midfields, that the ball is coming in a little bit quicker, and the ball isn't, probably like it has been for us, a little slower coming in. But that's, pressure around the contest and around the midfield. So they're doing their best. But yeah, it's certainly a thing we've been working on in training, certainly this week.
Do you have personal scoring targets, Cora?
No, we wouldn't have scoring targets. We'd look at certain things like stats like score involvements rather than scoring targets. So that'd be probably a big one for the forwards. Meters gained would be probably another one that we would take pride in. So you're looking to be probably up on 300 or 400 meters gained per game as a forward, certainly in my role. So they're kind of stats that you look at. Tackles would be a group goal. So we have line groups. Our forward line group would be certainly tackles and how many tackles we can get inside 50, inside our forward 50, and certainly how many marks we can have inside forward 50. We would have key performance indicators. Obviously goals is one of them, but probably shot efficiency rather than actual goals would be our key performance indicators.
When you talk about meters gained, is that kick passing, is that running with the ball, is it all encompassing?
It's all encompassing. So that's, right. Yeah, if you get the ball and put it on the boot and you can kick it 50 meters, and that's obviously 50 meters gained, but it has to be effective. It can't be 50 meters and I kick it to the opposition, then that's not counted. So yeah, it's a very stats-based game. And you know, I even talking to Brid, it's a lot different to Gaelic football, and probably the stats have to marry up. You marry up your stats with your GPS. You just don't solely focus on stats. So, you know, for example, as a forward with the GPS, a lot of the for me would be sprint meters, sprint efforts, that type of thing. The GPS covers about 12 different things.
Do you enjoy that? Do you like the fact that there is a spreadsheet with all your data from a specific game or a training session available to you?
Yeah, you do. I think the biggest thing is that you have all that data, but you also have, whether it's a training session or a match, you have, you know, every training session is videoed. So you can look at the video, you can look at the stats and see where you're going well or where you're not going well and things to improve on. So, yeah, there's advantages and disadvantages to stats. A lot of the unseen work, we'd have girls in the team that, you know, play a real unselfish role and have to do things that maybe they don't get stats for, but we know they're playing a really important role. It's same as in Gaelic football. It might be like your wing forward that they run up and down the pitch and mightn't get many touches, but they're playing a really important role. Or it could be something like a sweeper. So obviously the people around the ball are the midfielders would be the ones getting the high possessions, the backs and the forwards probably. If we get 10 to 12 possessions in a game, that's big where midfielders are racking up 20 plus possessions in a game.
The article that I read last night, Cora, previewing the game, the Eagles on Sunday that you mentioned a bit earlier on there, was tipping the Giants to win by 14. No pressure.
Yeah. No pressure. Yeah, I suppose, we played the Eagles last year and we bet them well. The Eagles have had a very hard start to the season. I suppose they've played probably three of the top teams in Brisbane, Adelaide and Fremantle. You know, Adelaide and Fremantle has certainly been the two favourites for the competition. So they've had a hard start. They're a very young, exciting team. They're very physical. They play a very contested game. So in that regards, when I say contested game, they like to get in and hit hard. So yeah, there'll be a lot of pressure on our midfield. That's probably where the ball is going, or the game is going to be won and lost, because the ball is around the midfield a lot. So yeah, it's tough. We're at home. That's, you know, another big advantage. They're flying over from Perth tomorrow. So obviously that's Sydney to Perth is a 4.5 hour flight. So, you know, you take all that into account. And yeah, you could see why we're favourites.
Yeah, and Ashley McCarthy lighting it up for them as well. So I'm sure you'll be having a chat with her as well on Sunday.
Yeah, so
go on, yeah.
Surely. Yeah, no, Ashley was doing well, and obviously the two Mayo girls, Niamh Kelly and Grace Kelly, obviously play with the Eagles as well. Niamh is out injured at the moment, so Grace has been playing with the Eagles as well, so she'll be one certainly our backline will have to watch.
The Irish players looking out for each other has obviously been a feature over the last couple of years, and a feature again this year. And you mentioned Brid a bit earlier on, and the tough time that she's had with injury, and she's written brilliantly about it. If people haven't seen her pieces in the Irish Examiner over the last few weeks, I highly recommend to go and check them out, because she's been really honest and forthright about what she's been going through. I remember you speaking last year, Cora, about you used the comments from a coach that had doubted your powers of recovery, or at least, as you said yourself, you were twisting them that way to suit your own purpose, to give you a bit of motivation almost about it, and all that you went through with that. You're very well equipped with the tools, having been through all that, to help guide Brid through almost.
Yeah, surely. You know, as I said to her, you know, a lot of these major injuries, yeah, they're a physical battle, surely, but the biggest side of it is it's very tough mentally. Brid has been probably through a huge emotional roller coaster since she arrived. You know, obviously starting with hotel quarantine and then having to hub, and then obviously her injury, the tribunal, and the way that went. And then she's had appointments with, you know, different consultants and doctors where, you know, the news might be good one day and 2 days later it mightn't be so good. So I suppose that's been a huge struggle for her, but she's been very positive through it all and has been very good among the group and sharing her experiences. Obviously, she's come from a team in Cork that have won so much. So she's imparted a lot of knowledge to the group and especially to the younger girls in the group. And again, I suppose they think it's a feature of the Irish at this stage, because obviously me and my recovery and the way Brid is attacking her recovery now, you know, and trying to get back for the back end of the season, you know, they think in some ways that we're a little bit crazy, and you know, that if that was their case, they'd probably just say they'd wipe the season, or in some cases wipe their careers and say, you know, we're never going to get back. So yeah, I think it's good for the girls in our club to see that how mentally strong that, you know, I was, and certainly how Brid is now at this moment in time.
Yeah, you were in close quarters when the tackle happened, and you mentioned the tribunal there, and she was particularly annoyed, I think, to put it mildly, with how that played out. What was your own take on the nature of the challenge and the aftermath in terms of the ban and it being overturned?
Yeah, I suppose the nature of the challenge, yeah, while I was near it, I didn't, you know, see it, you know, in real time. I probably was, you know, I remember coming for the ball. I was probably trying to make a run. She wasn't too far away from me. I suppose the vibe, the memory that I have from that time was the screams that she let out, obviously when she got tackled, because it straight away brought me back to when I broke my leg, and the exact same screams. You know, I think when people go down injured, you know whether it's serious or not, and I knew straight away it was serious, because as I said, I think it's the adrenaline in your body that does it to you, that you let out these screams. You don't know why you're letting them out, whether, you know, to her it wasn't even pain. I think it's this shock that goes through your body. And I knew straight away she let out two of them and started, you know, I was straight over to her. And first of all, I actually thought it was her arm, because she was holding her arm, that she had broke her arm, and her arm was very floppy. But I could see there was nothing really wrong with it. And then she started to complain of a pain in her head and her neck. And then I knew straight away this was, you know, really, really serious. And I suppose that played out. Obviously, she was taken to hospital and, you know, on the pitch for probably about, you know, 35, 40 minutes. And the news went from, you know, pretty bad for the first while. I went back to the hotel to pick up her child. He was a bit with a babysitter, and the news then wasn't good for a while. And eventually I got into the Royal Hospital in Adelaide to see her, and surgery was mentioned, and, you know, a lot of nerve damage, but then the news, you know, came a little bit better. So it was a roller coaster. And then obviously the tribunal, that was really disappointing, you know, for Marinoff to get, you know, 3 games and then to be quashed, you know, that was hard for Brid to take. And I suppose the social media angle went from, you know, Brid being the victim to Brid being the villain. And I know she certainly took that you know, that took a lot out of her. And I suppose, you know, the club have been great and the people supporting her around it. And I think, you know, the main thing now, she has moved on from it all, and, you know, it is what it is back then. But yeah, she certainly went through probably 3 to 4 weeks of a real mental roller coaster.
The social media aspect doesn't help, Cora. Like the comments about the people putting the blame almost at her door was almost a team on social media, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yeah. And I suppose the most disappointing thing, when it was a practice match, if it's not a practice match, you know, the practice matches are live on television over here. If it was on television, you have a number of different camera angles that you can work off. As a practice match, it was, you know, there was 1 camera angle, I think maybe 2, and people didn't see, you know, it wasn't a great view that they could see. Yeah, and then the trial by social media, it was terrible. You know, as we know, social media can have huge benefits, but, you know, it can have huge negative things as well. So yeah, I felt really sorry for her, because what people didn't see, that was probably, I think there was 30 seconds, maybe to a minute left in the game. Brid was probably was one of our best players, if not our best player on the pitch that day. She was having a stormer. She was in a number of tackles before that, so it wasn't anything like it was her first tackle in AFL. she had played out 70, 80 minutes, and she was definitely her best on ground. And that was the most disappointing thing. That was never said in the media. Nothing else. You know, she was involved in probably 7-10 tackles well before that. So that's the disappointing thing. And the theme that they went around, that, you know, she's a rookie and she was 34 and she was new to the game and she didn't know what she was doing. You know, she'd trained for 6 or 7 weeks previous to that game and had been involved in a load of contact. So that was really disappointing, and I know that really upset her.
Cora, a conversation about, we mentioned coronavirus at the top, but the conversation certainly around mental health in this country over the last 12 months feels like it's moved on decades in terms of people's sort of capacity for openness about actually how they're feeling. The I'm grand stuff seems to be certainly not a thing of the past, but it certainly seems that anecdotally and otherwise that people are a bit more open to having conversations on mental health. And we haven't had a chance to talk to you since and condolences, the sad passing of your teammate Jacinda Barkley last year. I'd read a piece by Rebecca Beeson, also one of your colleagues at the Giants, in The Guardian at the back end of last year, and it really stayed with me, I have to say, for days afterwards. It was a powerful piece, and again, highly recommend to go and check it out. But as I said, we haven't had a chance to talk to you, and I wondered, as a squad, how do you even begin to come to terms with something of that magnitude?
Yeah, it's been very difficult. People didn't know Cinda. She was certainly one in a lifetime individual. She was very different. You know, I always remember my first day coming into the Giants. Walking into the dressing room very shy, and she was one of the first people over to me, and you know, she was certainly she was different, and you know, she had a different way about life, but she was very upbeat and probably looked after the people that needed looking after in a team that, you know, maybe that were a bit shyer and needed a little bit of support to get words out and a little bit of support socially. She was very good. Yeah, I suppose as a group it was very difficult at the time. Because we're a team where we have a lot of girls that are interstate, and obviously we have girls overseas. So, you know, there was 2 of us in Ireland. We had a lot of girls in Melbourne. So we didn't really ever get a chance to fully grieve as a team. And obviously restrictions with COVID over here as well at the time. None of the girls, because the funeral was in Perth and they were all Sydney or Melbourne based, none of them obviously could go to the funeral because all the borders were closed. So, it's probably difficult as a group. The first time we got together as a full group, because we had a couple of girls that couldn't come to Hub with us when we went to regional New South Wales, because one was training to be a firefighter and one of the other girls is in the army, so they just couldn't get off work. So it's only 2 weeks ago was the first time as a full group, staff and teammates, that we've all been together. So. Yeah, we've had little tributes over the last kind of number of months. Certainly in the first round when we played in Perth, because that's where Cinda's from. Obviously, we had a minute silence. We've her number is on all our jerseys and our polos and stuff like that. So yeah, her memory is certainly around the club. Her locker is still there. You know, there's pictures of her everywhere, and yeah, we speak about her regularly. And I suppose, you know, as it's well documented, she's gone through quite a tough mental health battle, but she was massively supported by our coach, Alan, and he done massive work for her, as did our team psychologist and welfare people. But, you know, they did the best they could. But, you know, in the end, it was a choice that, you know, that Cinda made. And it's very difficult, but it's a thing that we're working through certainly together.
Yeah, it leaves so many questions in its wake, far more than answers, and I can only imagine how difficult it is to have gone through that. And I know a big theme of the piece as well, Cora, was in relation to the fact that, like, she would have had to scrimp and save, like, as somebody of her prowess, and for people who haven't read it, she was multi-talented across a whole load of different sports, represented Australia internationally and played in the US in different sports and that as well, but struggled to make ends meet. And what's your take? Because I know we had, coincidentally, Louise Quinn was on with Nathan last night, and he was talking again about, they were talking again about the issue of equal pay here, and it was discussed. It came up at Dáil level, actually, a few months back, where the quasi-minister for sport, Jack Chambers, at the time said that he was going to march out to the FAI to demand equity. A different dynamic, obviously, for Gaelic sports, but that point about the, like, expenses, particularly in relation to the women's game and the men's game here, and obviously moves recently with the GPA and the WGPA combining. I don't know how much of that you followed or what your opinions on that would be, but what's your sense here of, and by all means, add in your experience in Australia, of that shift to some sort of pay equity to make it possible for elite female athletes to be able to focus on sport?
Yeah, I think obviously, I'll speak from GA first. Again, yeah, it's getting better, but in my opinion, it's not getting better fast enough. It's too slow. I remember sitting talking about this maybe 10 years ago, and it's been done very ad hoc. There's some county teams that are being looked after okay. There's some county teams being looked after quite well, and there's some county teams that aren't being looked after at all. So that's the biggest disappointing thing, that, all county teams, whether you're from Mayo or you're from Dublin or you're from Limerick or you're from Tipperary, wherever you're from, if you're an senior inter-county player, you should all be receiving the same. And I know for a fact there's girls within county teams are receiving expenses, and there's girls that's not. And, it's minimal. I think this year they received expensive because of COVID and having to travel on your own. But yeah, like my experience, I'm retired out of county football, 2 or 3 years now. And in my time, 24 years playing for Mayo, I never received an expense. I never got petrol or diesel money. We were very lucky. Maybe in the last few years, we might have got meals after training, not all the time. And you're certainly massively out of pocket. And I think that's, it's disappointing because you look at your male counterparts. The biggest example I can give is the Mayo men, how well looked after their expenses and being fed and, different things like that. Yeah, and it's moving on. The WGPA and the GPA has certainly come together, is another huge improvement. But I really don't think all of this is going to fully get better, or we're going to have more equality until all the organisations, that the GAA, Ladies Football and the Camogie Association are all as one. Until that day happens, we're still going to be seen as separate bodies, and that once we're under one unit, then there's more chance that ladies footballers and camogie players will be treated the same as men's, whether that's in facilities, whether that's in expenses, whatever it is. Until that day happens, we're still going to be talking about this issue, like we were last year talking about the Galway Cork ladies match that was moved to Crow Park at last minute from Parnell Park. Every year we're talking about one or two things, and until the organisations come together, and then we can strive for equality, I think we're still going to be talking about this in 5 years' time.
Yeah, well, actually, it was just that you mentioned it. I was listening to an interview yesterday with John Walters, the former Ireland footballer who's gone for the CEO of the PFA in England, which is a big job. And he was talking about that exact point, about how, like, those who have need to help out those who have not. What's your sense of, like, a willingness on all parts to, I mean, the merging of them at that top level would seem like a fairly easy fix, but your sense of the appetite maybe at elite level from what you've seen over the years to make that kind of a move? Yeah,
like I think it's there. I sense, from the GAA that they want this to be done. They want, they've gone for the one club model. So I sense it's there. Whether, I'm not sure. I think the biggest question that needs to be asked is why it hasn't happened. Why hasn't the Ladies Association and Camogie Association gone in under? Because I wrote about it in my book a few years ago. I remember sitting in a taxi with Nicky Brennan, back in somewhere in China at a GAA games, and him asking me the questions. He was very keen to get all the three associations together, and he was asking me, do I know why it's not happening? I certainly didn't, but I think the question needs to be put out there: why hasn't it happened? And if it hasn't happened, when is it going to be happening? I think a date needs to be set that by 2022 that the organisations will become one, and it won't be that we'll be talking about ladies football or camogie or men's football. We'll be all under the one umbrella, and I think the games will grow. I think ladies football, while it's grown very fast now in camogie, I think they'll even excel even more, and I think that's the questions that need to be asked. And whether that's politically pressure needs to be put on, or pressure needs to be put on at the top levels, it needs to be done by someone. But at the moment, I think everyone is kind of saying we're doing something, but there's no definite outcome.
Yeah, and at the minute, at a governmental level, sound bites seem to be the currency of the day, and sending out a press release about every positive thing that happens in Irish sports seems to take up their time rather than actually getting into the nitty-gritty of the matters that count.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's a matter of doing it, and I think a date needs to be set. As I said, we're talking about this for years. As I said, I think it was, I'm not even sure, maybe that was 2014, or I'm not sure when Nicky Brennan was president, but back then, that's 6-7 years ago now. We can't afford to have that for another 6 or 7 years. We need to start moving on these things and not be talking about them. It comes to a stage that it's not right for females. And I go back to Cork, and that's the Cork and Go and their move of pitch to Croke Park that time. The way that was dealt with, and they should be grateful that they get the opportunity to play in Croke Park at last minute. That, to me, that's something that's 10 or 15 years ago. That we were dealing with that stuff. We shouldn't be dealing with it now. These are elite female athletes. They are given as much time as their male counterparts, and they should be treated accordingly as their male counterparts are.
Yeah, I better ask you, because Michael Moyles, who's the new Mayo manager, has been out in the press over the last little while, and he said there's a clean slate.
There's a clean slate, yeah. I think you missed something about, was it 2018 that I retired from playing GA, playing with Mayo. So there's a clean slate. It's great to see Michael back involved. He was involved, I think, with Mayo football with us in 2015. So he was a super coach then when he was involved. He's involved in a training capacity. So yeah, it's great to see that he's taken up the mantle, and he's assembled a really good backroom team with them. So yeah, I've seen Fiona McHale and them have said they're looking forward to going back. So yeah, I obviously wish them the best of luck, and I hope the best players in Mayo will play with Mayo, and can only wish them the best of luck. But yeah, my days with Mayo are certainly done. I think 24 seasons was far too long.
I mean, I think most Mayo fans would disagree with that, but we take you on your word, Cora. I don't want to be reading in the papers now in a couple of weeks that Cora Staunton said a call from Michael Moyles, and she's done a U-turn here. What's the future with the AFLW? Because you're no longer. We were talking about Brid and the rookie comments that were made. You're there and you're embedded now for the last while. What's the plan for you then going forward with the AFLW?
Yeah, that's another good question. At my age, I suppose you just have to take it year by year. Yeah, I'm probably waiting for the club to say, enough is enough now and get rid of me, but they haven't said that yet. No, I'll just, I'll take the season and I'll sit down at the end of the season. At this stage, to me, every season's a bonus. I have, obviously a great rapport with our coach out here, and, I love the club, and I love the opportunity to try and push myself and challenge myself. So, I'll sit down with Al again sometime in probably April or May, and see where I'm at, see where the body is at. The good thing for me is I'm really enjoying it, and my body is actually in good condition. Even better than this time last year when I was trying to come back from a leg. So as I said, reassess. At my age, that's the only thing you can do. I've probably been taking it year by year for probably the last 8 or 9 years, so it's stood me in good stead. So I'll keep going that way.
Yeah, what's one more year? Cora, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. Best of luck on Sunday, and we'll catch up with you again soon down the track.
Lovely, lads. Thanks a million. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a million. Thanks a lot. Cora Staunton on the line there from Sydney, talking all things AFLW and GA and plenty more besides as well. Right, it's almost 10 o'clock on this Friday morning. Thanks very much for joining us. It was a specially extended show for you here, and we're live weekday mornings, as you know by now, with thanks to Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. If you missed anything this morning, you can get the next. You'll get it next on OTB Sports Radio. Packed schedule of sport right across today. You can catch it all back on the OTB AM podcast as well, wherever it is you get your streams, and our 40-minute chat with James McLean as well, our interview. One of